Welcome, everybody. It's Seamus Sullivan and Marcos Rivera. Welcome to the Macro Perspective. I think that's the name we've kind of settled on. And basically, with this one, the Macro Perspective, we're looking at things from a big view, all in the world of fitness, nutrition, longevity, and kind of giving you guys the segments that go along with it and the topic that will go forth every episode. And we hope that in serving you, you find some value in the show that you can take actionably and basically implement into your life. Marcos, anything else on top of that?
Uh, no, we tried to be a little punny with the name, macros, right? Perspectives, trying to that bigger picture, encompassing view of health other than just macros only. And yeah, hopefully that sticks. I really like it, has a nice ring to it.
Has a nice ring to it, and we'll definitely get it out there, and we'll get the community going. And these few first episodes, just finding our voice and finding our cadence. So I hope y'all find it exciting as we grow along as well. But our topic today we wanted to get talking about was getting back on the horse, right? So the big topic there is getting back on the horse. What does that mean? That means basically that being able to jump back into routine, jump back onto something that you need to do for your health, your longevity, whether that's, it's 2023 right now, or it's around the corner if you're hearing this. Basically being able to get on a routine for fitness, a nutrition plan, maybe it's looking at your sleep, whatever it is, it's just getting back on the horse. But Marcos, I'll kind of let you take away from it for a little bit. What are some of your thoughts on how to get back on the horse? What are some of your tips that you feel have worked well with you, those those clients that you serve?
Yeah, so this is a big one, as we're recording this, middle of December, and
Yeah.
we're about to get into the season, if you will, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
We got Christmas Eve, we got New Year's Eve, all those things that are going to be, and again, they all happen on a weekend this year for 2022. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so, I think when it comes to getting back on the horse, there's kind of almost a pre-phase, right? Like right now, you can kind
Yeah.
of preemptive about like getting some habits and some skills around that would then serve
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
a little bit later. And I think that's been the biggest thing in speaking with everybody. It's like, hey, right now is kind of a maintenancy phase, right? And
Mm-hmm.
everybody else will literally be back come New Year, like
Yeah.
their shit. And we want to make sure that like, those people and ourselves included, right, are ready for
Yeah.
that next phase. And right before
100%.
this, we talked about um trying to potentially do a little bit of a challenge, right? And
Yeah. Yeah.
again, we know that with nutrition, we want to periodize things and, we're going to basically align for a goal in 12 weeks. And
Yep.
that's the big thing, right? So like getting back on the horse for us is like, hey, is like we're ready to do it. We know that this time of year is like wanting to like maximize enjoyment and keeping training hard. But yeah, so when you mentioned that, I was like, dude, I mean, I'm already gonna do it. So
it's
maybe
it's already on it. That's something that I always kind of spew to my clients, or kind of like a big thing um that I've been seeing among my mentors or people just outside of fitness and nutrition, even just like business, right? I tell people a great 2023 starts in December, right? I always tell people get preemptive. I would say it's like the work in time. I'll say that in quotes for those that are listening to this on a car ride or something, but like work in time. You're kind of being preemptive in December. Maybe you're writing down your goals. You're setting your calendar up. I'm personally setting up my calendar for the whole year of 2023 because that's how locked in I am. That's how ADD I am, I guess. But basically, doing all this preemptive work so that when 2023 shows up, I just follow what's on the list, right? Yeah, there's going to be some adjustments on the day to day. That's the truth, right? That's what we got to do, right, Marco? So even though there's periodization, you got to learn to adjust on the fly. But that's what I've been telling my clients. I'm like, look, like 2023 starts now, because when it comes to getting habits or lifestyle changes or getting back on the horse, um, if you start 2023, in my opinion, what I've seen with my clients, I don't know if you've seen this, Marcos, but tell me, you can interrupt me anytime. But do you feel like sometimes that if you do it starting 2023, they're not really getting a good cadence until 2 to 3 weeks in?
most definitely. I mean, to think that you're just going to magically snap your fingers and you're just going to have the next month be amazing is generally going to not work for you, right?
Yeah, it ain't gonna work. Yeah.
And if you're looking to really kind of enhance that, right now you're already doing some of the, laborious bullshit of like meal prepping, and
Yeah.
having the items ready for work. And again, every really big event for 2022, there's literally no excuse. It's on the weekend. So
Yeah.
just get your weeks prepped, right? And then you can just enjoy your weekends,
Yeah.
and then literally, remove that enjoyment factor going into January for a few weeks, right? For
Yeah.
sake of a visual goal. And, then learn again, like, hey, like your your next summer body kind of started in January, right? And a
Yeah.
lot of people look at like a particular dieting phase, like that's going to then be the amount of calories that they will be eating for, the remainder of their life. And like, oh, this
Yeah.
lifestyle, they start thinking about it. It's like, actually my wife made a comment to me. She's like, I thought you were going to get down to 205. Like, I thought you said that like you were going to, I'm like, yeah, but that all went out the window when y'all started making cookies.
Not the cookies, Marcos. Oh man.
And
It's hard. It's hard. I hear you, man. It's hard when everyone else is not on track, right?
yeah,
And you have these plans of your own. It's like, man, I'm always challenged. I think that comes into play too, where it's important to know how to communicate that effectively, but also at the same time to know like, yeah, this is kind of that season right now. Like right now in this season of the holidays, it's like not a time to be in a dieting phase of sorts or a phase to cut down, right? Because everyone's kind of like loose, right? Maintenance. I'd like to use the word maintenance, like you kind of said,
yep.
but we're a lot looser at this time because either we're seeing family, we're seeing friends, we're going out, we're on vacation. Yeah, it's a bit tough. So the cookies, I wouldn't turn them down, you know.
Oh man, chocolate chip, oatmeal chocolate chip, butter balls, you name it. The nice thing is that like I've actually gone and sampled ones that I'm like, do I even like this one? And I'm like, I ate half of it, and I literally was like, here, babe, like eat the remainder. And she was like, you don't like? I was like, no, like I would rather just go smash like 4 or 5 of the chocolate chip cookies at home that you guys made like earlier in the week.
Yeah, yeah,
And again, setting yourself up for success in order to get back on the horse in this phase. I'm like, okay, December, basically in the beginning of November, or sorry, at the end of November, we I had so much going on. Anniversary, mom's birthday,
oh,
thanks,
I know.
right? And I then was like, well, how do I what do I need to be doing for the last, however many days of the year that we're still there? I'm like, well, I actually got to a new low weight, and I'm like, well, if I can kind of stay in that range, I was about 218 to 217, right? So I was kind of hovering
Mm-hmm.
there. But now I'm up about, 4 or so pounds. And I'm like, well, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna not enjoy those, decadent things. I have family coming into town that I haven't seen in 20 like years, like in the
Yeah,
flesh,
yeah,
right? Like as a whole, right? And I already know what is on our menu. We've already kind of planned each day, which is nice. So I know
yeah,
what to do. And I'm like, well, I have to build some sort of strategy right now that's going to enable
yeah,
the ability to enjoy that, but not have that weight go to like 230, right? Um,
yeah. That makes sense. And just to note, just before you go, on average, if you guys just Google this, like on average, people gain 5+ pounds during the holidays, and that's most people on average gain about 5 pounds, about 7 pounds a year or whatever. Or I don't know the exact number, but like most of that gain is from November to the new year. If you really think about it, every year adults go up in weight. Most of that gain is in the holidays. So, um, and in my opinion, Marcos, I don't know if you've seen this, but Google says 5. I've seen roughly anywhere between 7 to 14 pounds gains with some of my clients. And that's just on average. So I've seen some people go up to almost 20 pounds within 6 weeks. And I'm not trying to joke here. Like I've seen it happen, right? You've probably seen it happen too.
I mean, I've been subjected to that at some point in my life, right? Like,
Yeah.
holidays for me over the years as a young kid, my parents, both those side of the families are not super health oriented in regards to like training and creating a physique and like everything related to external and internal health, right?
Yeah.
So they do work in the medical field, right? So,
Mm,
because they're again they're older too, they're wiser. I'm like, why are they just really enjoying these particular food items that are coming around? And
yeah.
now that I'm learning, I was like, oh, well, they probably have a way with it so they can work this in versus, exclude it. And
Yeah.
I would go back to Youngstown, Ohio's as a suburb called Campbell, where my dad grew up.
Youngstown, Ohio. That's awesome.
And so he was in the suburb, Campbell, Ohio. Man, I'm telling you, there is not even a grocery store in that town these
You're
days.
joking.
I'm
You're
serious.
joking.
Yeah, like
Wow.
you have to drive the next town over to get,
How long would that drive be?
I don't know, 20 minutes, like,
That does make it hard. That
yeah.
does make it hard.
And as a kid, I was like, in my fitness kick, I was like, fuck, I can't go to the gym. The YMCA is closed because that's like the closest thing to do anything. And my aunt in her basement has like an old, like literally Schwinn Airdyne that's like probably 40 years old. So I would bust out some intervals on.
Those things are, dude. I got an old one for my old garage gym. I think it was from like the 80s, and it was still good. I don't know what Schwinn did, but like their engineering was top notch, I would say.
Yeah. So like I would try to work those things in, in my in my fitnessy phase. But before that, I was doing like before CrossFit, I was doing like weightlifting and everything was closed. And so it was
Yeah.
just hard. I always dealt with this like, almost like a little bit of a depression, like I'm going to lose all my gains. And I think a lot of people can feel that way because you're like, oh, I'm going to get out of sync. I'm going to get out of the routine. And this is where nowadays I'm like, if I literally just would have gone outside and gone for a walk, like for 10, 20 minutes over and
You've
over
been
again,
fine.
I'd have been fine because that
Yeah.
1 week off of training is, you know, nothing in the comparison of like the entire span of the entire year of training
Yeah.
itself. So
Yeah, I think another tip that I'd like to give is on along that track of, how do you get back on the horse is not making the horse so tall. And what I mean by that is like not making the barrier to entry so hard that you don't even want to do it anymore. Like the idea of your routine is so difficult that you're like, this is too much. So like the easiest thing, like for example, you just said like let's get to walking. Like I know people, and I've done this myself. So for those listening, like I've been there. I'm super ADHD about these things. Is like I have the perfect workout plan. I have the meal plan set. I go to bed at this time. I'm taking these supplements, and everything's scheduled so tight, like super tight, type A, right? I'm controlling all the factors. Here's why that doesn't work. The reason it doesn't work is because the moment it becomes too glaring, or the moment it becomes too high for you, and the moment you aren't able to meet the certain demands. Like, for example, like you woke up late one day because your kids kept you up and you couldn't get to your workout, the rest of your week is ruined. So you don't go to the rest of you're like, oh, I messed up, so I'm not gonna do that. You know what? I didn't get to meal prep, so I'm just gonna say screw the meal prep. Like you don't find different ways. So being too rigid, I think, right, Marcos, is like that's where that mindset of like, oh, I'm messing my gains up or I'm not getting anywhere. And that stress ball, like you internalize it and it's so much worse for you, right? Than just like, dude, do a 10-minute walk. You're still probably gonna be okay in the overall
yeah,
vastness of things, right? I've been there and um just to let y'all know, like I'm super like obsessed. Like I was a wrestler in college. Like talk about obsessed. Like I was there. So I understand what it means to have everything perfect. And if it doesn't get perfect, you did not want to be around me. It was like the worst kind of person. But I've learned to bring that down. And I think the biggest thing I would say from then that lesson is be flexible, be able to understand that you have a plan, but the plan is not about a perfect plan. It's just being able to stick to a plan over a long period of time that is constantly adapting instead of sticking to a perfect plan for one day that you'll never do for the rest of your life. You got to keep it sustainable.
yeah, and I think I think uh, as humans we want linearity and we want perfection, right?
Yeah, it's
Like
the
the
worst.
two things that are very pretty for the eye to see, right? And we are unable to realistically keep ourselves again like in a linear state of loss, right? It's
Yeah.
not really a linear state of gain either. um
Yep.
and the other thing too is, a lot of the times you can tell yourself when you're in a training environment that that person has 10 years of training on you, right? And when you're like, oh, it's like, oh, maybe in 10 years I'll look that, and like you're just so like in the moment, right? But if you really
Yeah.
take a step back and look at like all the other influences
Factors. Yeah.
and yeah, how everything else will start kind of panning out over the course of the next year, kind of like you said you've laid out, you're gonna find far better success, right? And it all starts up here, right? It all starts in the head. And
All
you
in there.
have to convince yourself, which is the hardest person to fool because you're in your own head having whatever 10,000 thoughts a day or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you literally just have to, again, tell yourself, all right, this is very short term. This is not serve. I mean, it's serving me in the moment. This is like, again, when was the last time you had that item? Do you make it every year or not?
Yeah.
Like, or is it grandma's version or is it your own homemade version? Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So like, just don't beat your don't beat yourself up about it. And like you just said about don't make the horse too tall. Again, and also kind of being preemptive. Like again, start with some baby steps. What are the things that are going to carry you into the new version of yourself? Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is a useful exercise I kind of play with when it comes to clients at times. I'm like, if I were to snap my fingers right now and give you your weight loss goal, what changed? And they're like, well, obviously, like I was like really consistent with my eating and blah blah blah. Like I was like, well, I mean, like I just told you, I snapped my fingers and I did it for you, and you're still acknowledging that there had to have been a shift in your head in order to get there, because
Mm-hmm.
if nothing changes, then nothing will change. So,
Yep. 100%.
starting it off, it's not that you need things to be changing during that time of year. It's more so that you are looking to them be like, hey, this serves me. I'm just making an excuse, right? Like I do have an hour to devote to like, some cardio instead of sitting my ass on the couch at the end of the night. I can make time for a 10, 20, 30-minute walk after dinner. Like it's things
Yeah.
that are so simple, but like if you never start doing it in a time where again, you have some freedom, right? Then you'll never make the time for it ever. Like I'm convinced.
Yeah. One of my favorite mentors, he says something along the lines of like, you need to have things that you do in any season of life to make it sustainable, whether it's the busiest season or it's the freest season that you have. So for example, I had, as coaches, we'll get on talks with people that want to come into our ecosystem and want to be coached by us. And they're like, they get on this call and like, I just don't think I have the time. And they're already pandering themselves out. They're already talking themselves out before I even ask anything. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, where does that come from? And my biggest thing, I've just shut it all down. I'm like, look, when you start doing this now in your busiest season, because life always gets busier, you'll have the systems and rituals in place so that these things are on autopilot and you never have to think about it anymore. So that when life does get busier, because right now you think you're busy, but life is chaotic, you'll have the systems in place. You don't have to worry about this. So that usually that really boils it down a little bit for them. And they go, oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it's the same thing for me too. Every time that I've stuck to a routine, flexibility, I would say like around 85%. I know that when a busier time comes, I have systems in place to know, oh yeah, it's after dinner time. I got to go for a quick walk with the dog. Um, uh, Pro tip: get a dog. You always have to walk it, so you always get your steps in, right? But then also at the same time, like, hey, it's the morning. I get up and it's just right away. I'll head over to the gym, but I already had my clothes prepackaged before or a preset before. Just little things like that make it easier for someone, getting in. Just the less you have to think, the less, like you said, being in your brain and having to think yourself out of things, I think will be so powerful. It's so it people just get in their own way too much than anything else, to be honest.
Yeah. Like, it's always limiting self-beliefs. It's like I don't have the time. And again, like going back to our first episode, it's like when it comes to preparation, to me, it's like you just need a plan B. Like literally, like plan B is your plan A.
Plan B, plan C, plan D, plan E, like have just little things along the way.
Yeah. And
Um,
speaking to this, one of my clients that I spoke to last weekend, you know, uh, he's killing it again in his business life. And so
yeah.
his food is not at the front of his mind all the time, right? And so he asked me to basically message him each morning for motivation during this week to kind of help keep his mind on that, centering his mind to some nutritional things. And already it's like I brought it to the front of the mind on day one, and I'm trying to prep for tomorrow. Oh, I actually went and got the food. Actually, so it's like, whoa. The only difference for you seeing that level of success was literally a message from me. Like, cool. I'm glad. Like, I'm
That's powerful. Imagine that for the listeners. You just get a ding on your phone, and then now you're primed for the rest of the day to eat better. Like, how cool is that? That's one that's one small little effort from you. It's not like this Herculean effort. Like it's not like epic, like, it's just, hey,
Yeah.
remember to eat right.
But I'm trying to do some motivational quotes or giving him some like feedback and like, I try to be thoughtful about it. It's not just like, hey, like you got to get your macros on point, right? Like
Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah,
like, hey, like I'm acknowledging, I know where you're at. I talk to you regularly, right? But I want you to be better, right? And
yeah.
he also knows like, man, like if I could just get myself to put myself first versus just my business first, then I'm going to probably be a little bit more successful. And, sure enough, I think it's already kind of making a pretty good impact again in the
Hmm.
hardest time of the year, going into holiday season. And so
Yeah.
that's been it's been really important is like again, I think it all relates back to that mindset and being ready for that. And so I mean, obviously like this is us just thinking pre-planning, right? Like, but
Pre-planning, yeah.
what's
But let's talk about some action steps real quick. I want to add one because you kind of reminded me of another client that I'm kind of dealing with as well.
mm,
Um, all this client needed, she just needed a phone call once a week. Um, we already kind of did that, but like she needed it like just randomly. She needed like a random one throughout the day,
good one?
just to be like, oh snaps, like he's actually really watching out for me. So we have her check in, but then I'm calling her again randomly. So like I'll just put it random for the week, and she really liked that because it kept her on her toes a little bit. But I also told her, and talking about the preemptive, I also told her, I was like, look, like this level of accountability is great, and I'm gonna be helping you out, but you need to create a community too. So I asked her, like, is there anyone else that can walk with you or that can do your workouts with you? And she already had that, and she just kind of reinforced it, saying, like, yeah, like I'm gonna make sure that we're always on time with these things, and just kind of it was just it's cool seeing how like just one little action has this ripple effect, kind of what you're talking about. But I'll let you digress into what you're talking about there.
Yeah, right. So like first is like acknowledge that there's going to be a spot where you're going to be making the change, right? And then what? Like what are the next steps, right? And what would be your first one? Like if you were to get back on the horse,
Mm-hmm.
right, like what's the first thing that you would do? Like bar none. That's like
Me?
yeah.
I would say for me, the biggest thing is just I'm kind of a what you'd call like I don't know what the word is, but I'm like a uh, I don't know the word, but it was like a strength test. But basically, for me, if I were to get back on the horse, I need to lay out kind of the thing, like I was just saying before, like
You need a
get
baseline.
my get a planner and get a baseline, right? Like so, I kind of write things out. I kind of see where I'm at, and then I would write my goals out. I would see where I'm at, then write my goals, and then kind of see how it would pan out. So I kind of need to see it. I need to see it, like you said, the mindset. I need to see it kind of play in my head,
Yeah.
and then I follow it through.
Yeah. So it's like a visualization strategy,
Yeah, yeah.
like almost like the goal setting and like kind of top downing it or bottom upping or whatever version of that you
Either or, yeah, yeah, pretty much. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, literally the year I sat down and was like, these are the numbers I want to hit with my list, and these are the things I want to accomplish. I think I checked them all off. I think maybe there
I'll
was,
be real with you. Yeah, I have my development board right here.
yeah,
I journaled about last year about Christmas, because I was in a big financial turmoil last year, and like over 12 months I had did so much things so much better with my finances that like not only did I hit my financial goals for this Christmas for like family, like I quadrupled those goals, and I was like, oh, like this is powerful, like I set it in motion, like you said, and then like checked everything off like exceptionally.
yeah. It well again too. Like you were limiting your own self beliefs, thinking that wasn't something possible or even on the table for yourself. But
Yeah.
then again, you wrote something down, and you're like, oh, I 4x to that. Like, well, shit. Like,
What
it,
else could I do?
well, yeah. Like again, you're like, well, that was easy, right? I'm sure it wasn't, but like, you just figured out a way to actually communicate your message more effectively to, you know, patients, clients, you name it, right, and anybody around you. And
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing that's, you know, helped me in that, like we'll call it vision boarding or manifestation, like whatever term that you like to use there, is really the law of attraction, right? If you're
Yeah.
trying
Yeah.
to attract healthy behaviors, there's something about thinking about, well, what does a healthy person do, and identifying as a healthy person, right? So I start there basically, kind of in the beginning of every year. Last year was
The
easy.
identity, the identity of that person, right?
yeah, like identifying as that being, right? It's like, oh, I
Yeah.
can't do that because I'm not that person. It's like, no, 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 I am a healthy person, and healthy people eat healthy foods, right? And healthy
Hmm.
people, are organized, and I'm currently not organized, so I need to get that up. And it's like I am not, I'm not.
Yeah, and one thing I want to point about that too is I got this from a mentor too. He said this exact question: what do healthy people do when like they have like a Christmas weekend or like a cheat weekend or something like that? Do they beat themselves up about it and then like ruin their whole weekend with more?
No.
No, they probably go, "Oh yeah, that was great. I'm just gonna get back to it."
Well, yeah,
You
generally
know,
speaking, the healthy people like to indulge probably even more than the people that are like, oh, I'm spinning my wheels and can't get anywhere. I mean,
I'll be honest with you, coaching so many people. Yes, I know that might sound really weird for the person listening to this who might be struggling with like whatever they're eating. And I've seen it all. I've seen people like wake up and eat like a Twix bar for breakfast. And I've seen that. Like I've seen sugar addictions, quote unquote, or
Quick spar for
whatever it is.
as
Oh, it's happened.
they logged that.
Oh, they logged it. They were being honest and like it this is a client that I kind of helped lose a lot of weight, but it was there was a lot there. But anyways, the kind of pandering moment there is you can have this belief that like, oh, people that are like, let's just say overweight are the ones that are really overdoing and all this stuff. Yeah, sometimes healthy people have more indulgent moments, and I've seen that. Like I have seen that. It's just they know how to like bounce back. They know how to bounce back. That's it.
Yeah. So first step for you is writing it all out, creating a plan,
Yeah.
and then it kind of goes into the execution of it, right? In order for me to
Hmm.
get to these desirable end goals or, targets, this is where I would tell somebody your goal has to be smart, right? Specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time,
Realistic time.
right?
Yep. Hmm.
Right. So we need those five things. And I like that acronym because we want to create smart goals, right? And things that are, again, moderately lofty, right? Like, like I think I could do this,
It's a
but,
challenge. It's a challenge. Yeah.
analytically speaking, it's like losing 10% of my body weight in the next 10 weeks would mean I lose 22 pounds. All right, cool. Am I going to be
Ooh, that
pissed?
sounds fun.
No one said that sounds fun ever, right? Like,
No, that's
um, but okay, well, in order for me to do that, like, all right, 10 weeks, right? That is realistic based on, a realistic time frame. I feel like I can attain it, but like, and again, like the specificity of it is literally supposed to happen in that time bounded phase, right? Then you kind of
mm-hmm.
have to boil it down to like, all right, well, what are the action steps that need to be there, right? So
Yeah.
for you, it's writing it out. I think for me, it's kind of writing it out or identifying that something will need to change to reach that specific measure.
Yeah.
Then it's like, well, what again, like what does that person do? What does a person do that is trying to actively lose or, we'll say get shredded, right? Um, and
Yeah.
like, okay, well, there's no more fuck off moments at the end of the night in the pantry like there is currently.
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
there's no more this. There's a clear cut bedtime. There is, instilled habits that are supposed to probably be there. And they have to mesh with me, the individual. Like I've never
Yeah. It
been,
has to be sustainable to you. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and I've never been a reader. So like, but I know that people that generally read are, more one with like the world or whatever, and they actually can start thinking of new things or hearing an idea for the first time through, an author. And as a math guy growing up to now being like, I need to like learn more about like how the mind functions. That's something that I've identified that like, well, that's a challenge, but I like it, and it gets me away, and it gets me involved in something that is, also helping me reach and strive the other goal. So I'll start with like,
Yeah.
again, like something that is getting my mind thinking that I can then communicate to my job because like that helps me stay tied there to like focus.
Yeah.
And it still also helps like my mind not only be solely focused on a goal of loss, right? So
I want to kind of point out on that real fast if I can there, Marco. It's like
yeah, go
you're a
ahead.
math guy. This is one of the things, one of the folks I used to talk about authors, this guy Tim Ferriss, if you guys know him. But he talked about most people think that in 2023 or a new goal, it's like very much about an additive effect. Like I gotta do this, and this. I gotta add these things in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes when you do more of a subtractive effect in your life, see the math there, Marcos,
Mm-hmm.
you actually multiply on other things. I always like to use this example with my clients because I see this a lot with my clients. They already have the habits of a healthy person. They get up and work out a few times per week. They eat relatively well. However, oh, they do go to sleep at a good time. However, they like to drink and party on the weekends. Okay. So they've got the good things. No progress in goals, no results, no nothing. And I tell them, you know what? We're not going to do anything different. However, I'm going to challenge you to subtract the drinking or cut it down. And that's all I do. But because I ask them to do a subtractive effect, they gain so much, right? They gain and get better results. They get better sleep on the weekends and they have more time to be focused and coming back strong
Yeah.
on Monday for work or something. So that's kind of just my little spiel there, but go ahead and continue.
Yeah. So, well, I wanna actually add to that. I was
Yeah.
doing another podcast yesterday with a friend, and we were talking about like social balance, right? And, again, I always tell people you have events and you have outings. Like if you're just going to an outing every weekend because that's like what you do with the boys, or, you're going to the bar, you're single, whatever that might be, well, you're probably going to have to sacrifice some stuff earlier in the day in order to make your other goals come to fruition, right? Now, again, Christmas and these other holiday parties that are coming up, those are more of an event. They're planned out ahead of time and you can make a better decision too. So, because you're like, well, I could actually like taper the week leading up to it and then kind of fuck off
Mm,
completely.
yeah, yeah.
And still see a positive effect. You might wake up the next day, be a little bit bloated, and have a little bit of a scale bump, but you can still effectively like get right back on the horse and get to it and still have your goal come forward. But again, too, like that takes
That takes skill. That takes like a balancing act, to be honest, that you have to get there, right?
you, yeah, yeah. And everybody thinks, oh well, perfection is the only way I know how to get a result. 6 to 7 days a week is the only way I know how to get a result in the gym. It's like,
Here's like an analogy I like to say about that. Like you're right. Like you got to build a box first around the person for them to learn how to play in and out of the box, right? Like they have to know the rules. You got to play the rules until you're ready to not play with the rules. It's kind of like that. That's just a game of body composition.
for sure, right? And again, like if someone came to me and is like, I need to hit this weight by this specific time and they're fucking off on the weekends, I'm going to be like what one of my coaches told me. He's like, guess what? 5 out of 7 days is a C, and C's don't get body composition results. It's all he ever needed to say to
Mm-hmm.
me for me to realize I need to clean my act up, and I need 6.5, 7 days to really get the result to come forward. Right? I can't be fucking off a little bit more than I want to. And that was profound. I was like, yeah, C's get degrees, but C's don't get you aesthetics, right? That's kind of what I what I came
I
up.
like that one. I like that one.
And
Nah,
again,
I love
you
it.
don't want to half-ass when you're going into a particular phase. Like, understand that like there's clear-cut timelines for a reason. You realize that opportunity makes the most sense given your work environment, and you're gonna stick to it. And again, like, guess what? If you're doing in the beginning of the year, 6 weeks into it, it's Valentine's Day, right?
Oh man, that's a tough one. I mean, my birthday is there, and then it's Valentine's Day 2 days later. So yeah, I know that one.
So that's what I'm saying is like, all right, like we're about to, you just said, hey, let's sign up for this 12-week challenge, and see if we can actually win and win some money out of it. And I'm like, okay, cool. That sounds great. But like now there's the social, I already know there's going to be some social factors that need to be involved in it, right? What would you do as a successful mitigation strategy? You're like literally, you could think about your goal, tell yourself 12 weeks, and you can immediately identify certain dates that are going to already be potential issues depending on where you're at.
Yeah, let's talk about like the certain dates. And I kind of want to give some tips here. And this is what I give to my clients when there's certain events, certain dates that are already on there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I this is what I would tell with my clients, and this is how to not only get back on the horse, but stay on the horse starting in the new year.
Yeah.
My first thing is like your mental framework, what we just kind of talked about. Don't beat yourself up over these things when things go out the window. You got to have the ability to not be frustrated because in that frustration, you're just going to make worse decisions, or you might go back to tendencies where you just beat yourself up. And I've seen it where people emotionally eat and because it's just what they like to do. But being able to go, okay, cool, what can I do here? Ask that question, how can I manage this? Okay, so you know that you're going out. Okay, be preemptive. Maybe you just look at the menu, of the place that you're going out. If you don't know the place that you're going out, I always tell people, like, can you get like a good piece of protein on the plate? Could you get like some good vegetables? And then can you get some carbs? And obviously, we'll teach those things to the client leading up to that, right? One of the other things I always like to do is, when you're at a restaurant, it's really hard because they got like the breadsticks or like they got the appetizers. It's just like try to be present and not to overdo it with those things, right? And maybe drink some water, get off your phone, because these things right here, they're like the TV. They just people mindlessly eat because they're just texting away. Um,
Yep.
so those are some of my tips. Just being like having a good mental framework going into it, having a preemptive plan of like what you're going to order, and being able to make those decisions automatically. Like I would tell people, like, if you don't have a meal plan, like today, if you didn't prep your meals, what are the 2 to 3 restaurants around your work or around you that are meal plan friendly? Is there like a Chipotle, a Subway, a Panda Express that like you can buy some good meat, greens, and like other things? So I always tell people like these little like tricks, just so they don't screw it all up and just get mad at themselves and then say screw it all up again, so
Yeah. And I think, like you said, kind of on those events, be present, live a little, don't overdo it. Right. That's kind of like the key thing I just wrote down as a result of you saying that. And again, like literally that's the point. So if you think that those events are going to be there in a 12-week stretch and that's the time frame that you've committed to, well, then guess what? Like on those moments where you've already mapped out certain days, yeah, like again, the mitigation strategy to like stay on the horse, but also be able to kind of get back on the horse like in the next day. Like literally one day can make or break people's like mindset sometimes because it's like,
oh yeah,
okay, let's just say I don't even know where Valentine's Day. Valentine's Day is on a Friday night. No, actually, let's say Thursday night. So Thursday night, you and your significant other go out to a nice dinner, and let's just say that like you had nothing planned earlier in the day. You just didn't. You kind of like didn't succeed with the earlier plan. You then immediately go into that dinner and you're like, okay, well, I want to enjoy this. I'll get back to it on Friday. Friday comes up. There's nothing planned for that day as well. And then you have somebody that gives you a call and says, hey, like, let's go out. And you're like, well, I already fucked up Thursday. Let me just
yeah,
go on Friday. I'm just gonna enjoy myself yet again. I'll get back to it Saturday. And it's the weekend and you're sitting around the house, you're around your food and you have nothing else prepared, right? So like again, this can immediately spiral into a 4-day stretch where, like it's Sunday. Let me just go order
oh
football still here, right? Actually, it's right around the Super Bowl, right? So, we're kind of in that phase. And sure enough, there you go. You just had an entire potential week where things did not go as planned because of a Thursday evening dinner that was supposed to be nice. All right. On the flip side, that
yeah,
date coming up in advance. If you've done this for a while, and again, I know that people that might be listening to this are new to this, right? Hey, in 6 weeks, I know I might have a protein goal and a certain amount of calories that I'm eating at this point in time, right? How can I make, protein and smarter decisions early in the day? Have I experimented with intermittent fasting? Does that work for me, right? Do I eat a particular way, earlier on that then allows me to leverage more food later? And again, like I would say that for me, I'm always leveraging and knowing like, hey, if I'm going out to this nice dinner, I'm gonna try to double up on that, like, fine dining quote fine dining or a restaurant experience protein because it's probably seasoned differently than I normally do. So it's kind of a nice change.
yeah,
I'll eat my typical like, 50 grams of protein earlier in the day, maybe do a shake. And then,
yeah.
whatever else comes afterwards, like the dessert, because I'm a sucker for that sort of thing. There's always
Me too. Ice cream.
that second stomach, it's like no matter how much food I've eaten, I'm ready for it. I'll probably do it. That's one day, and I mean, I saved myself earlier in the day. And then the next day, too, like there's nothing else around, there's no remnants. And you just find yourself in a much better position. But it does kind of think it takes thinking about those potential failure points in advance.
100%. I want to kind of move into the next thing. I know you went into it, but it's going to segue into our segment here.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
kind of the product of the week, but it actually makes sense because one of my big tips is, so for the new year, how to get back on the horse. And we've talked about this, saying, hey, getting the mind right, tracking it, and putting a goal down is the tracking. What is another way of tracking, right, team? One of the big things we always say is just, if you can't see, it's kind of like finances. If you don't manage it, you're not going to be, if you don't track it, you're not going to be able to manage it, right? If you don't have a someone helping you out with the finances. That's the same thing with like body composition. So that's always like a big thing, right, in fitness, Marco. So I want to share my screen here, and this one is going to be tracking your weight. Can you guys see this okay? Can you see this, Marcos?
And yeah, I can see it now. So I'll
It's going to
also,
be the winning scale. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I'll also say like with tracking, right? The beauty of like you just said for finances, a lot of people kind of set and forget like a 401k, right? Like,
Mm-hmm,
you know what I
mm-hmm.
mean? Like you got 5% being drawn at your paycheck and you
And
kind of
your company matches it.
right, yeah, yeah, but only up to that percentage. But we wish it was a limited match, right?
Which was unlimited, dude.
No, but so you have that, and so that's an effective strategy, right? Like kind of like if it's happening in the background, guess what? Like when you go and take a look at it, you're like, oh shit, I've saved up like 20 G's somehow. Like
What? Yeah, I looked at mine. I was like, what?
now I looked at mine, I was like, damn, like the fucking market. But again, like it's a long game. It kind of fits what we're talking about here. This bigger overarching view of everything, right? The long game, right? Don't worry about this short-term downward trajectory when it comes to the finances or the upward trend of the weight. Just realize like what also happened during that. So you
Yeah,
about the Withings scale, we use this. I recommend this to everybody I work with because it's happening in the
100%.
background, just like the matching or the money being taken out before it ever hits your account, right?
Yeah. I
So,
love it because exactly what you said. Like, I just step on it every day. I'll use the restroom, step up on it, like, down to my skivvies, and like just
yeah.
it plugs it away. It's attached to your Wi-Fi, it's attached to your phone, and just I'll look at it when I need to check in with my coach or my app, and I'm like, oh wow, I didn't even know that. So it's really great. I think the Withing scale.
How long?
How long have you been using it?
No, for you, how long have you been using one? A Wi-Fi enabled scale?
I'd be about like a year and a half to 2 years.
I have like 6 years of data because of a smart scale, if you believe it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. No way. And with the 6 years of data, what have you seen?
I can literally tell you like when my son was born, right? The differences. I could,
Yeah.
you see these different deviations, you see these like, maintenance phases and trends. And it's literally just by looking at my weight alone. Like
Yeah.
I actually like get some profound memories of just from looking at the trends of my weight. And again, I may have had a period of time where I wasn't stepping on it every single day, but that's the nice thing. It's just giving you like a monthly average over time. You see these things,
Yeah.
see these, the linearity. And like, again, like, oh, my body weight when I do that particular type of training kind of likes to be around here. Right. And when I'm
Yeah.
pursuing a different goal or I'm working with somebody, I've seen these other little spikes.
Yeah.
And too, like, that's only part of the picture. Right. And
Yeah. I wouldn't put most of the scale is one thing, right, Marcos? I wouldn't put all your eggs into this basket.
yeah,
I mean, if you have a weight goal, like specifically if you're working with someone or you know that you're supposed to be in a certain weight for your life, great. But I found it to be just a part of me where I've gained 20 to 25 pounds over the last 4 years, and I look better now than when I was 4 years ago at a lighter weight. And that just kind of comes with, remember, muscle increases, your metabolism gets better, and things, you know, you just look more fuller and you look better, right? And that's more of a physique thing. So don't always worry about the Withing scale or like the weight, which is super profound. There's always other ways of tracking, whether that's tracking through the mirror or some photos, or you know what, even tracking like just simple things, just how you feel, or how you feel about yourself in the mirror. Do you feel confident? Do you feel like, wow, I look really good right now, and you feel full, right? So um
mm,
definitely love the concept of a bit of tracking as a way to get back on the horse but stay on it as well, because it's just there, it's happening in the background.
yeah, yeah. And before we go into diving into this product 100%, I didn't use the Withings one in the beginning. I used a cheaper Renfo one. So while this is probably like the creme de la creme version, Amazon does
Yeah.
other variants that might be a lower tier item. And I think the body one, like not the body
Hmm.
plus, is only like $50, right?
Yeah,
$50.
yeah.
You can use like an HSA, FSA if you have those flex spending accounts, and this one is just going to do the pure basics, but it's what most people need is identifying those trends. Now the further up you go to like the body plus or the body comp versions, they're going to use
Yeah.
bioimpedance and stuff, but like again, that's, I mean,
That's like going into the weeds, honestly. That's
yeah,
why I love the tiers here, because like the body one, you just get your weight, body plus, you'll get a little more. I think I have the body comp one because I think work gave us that, but it goes into all the metrics, your water, your muscle, your fat mass, everything. And it gives a lot of insight, right? And it's interesting when you match this with like tracking your workouts, tracking your steps, tracking your sleep. Now, I'm not all about the quantified stuff, so please don't think I'm just like a tech guy that's like track everything. I'm not
oh,
that super. I'm anal, but I'm not always that anal. But like what I'm trying to say is like it's cool, like you said, like oh, this is the time that I had my kid.
yeah.
Okay, like what happened at this time? Oh, this is the time that I had really bad sleep. Oh, okay, now we see why the weight fluctuates that way. So it's just really interesting. But I think the Withings scale, if anyone's here, again, we're not getting anything out of this. It's just something we recommend because we use it. Um,
Yeah.
get one of these. You have options, right? You got options. So
Yeah, and I'm gonna share my screen now since they've kind of seen the product and the price points that are there for the different options. Um,
yeah,
and you will like this. So
let's
speaking
look at the.
speaking to the importance, come on.
And yeah, I didn't have the Withing scale too until the last like year and a half. I had like a different one for about like 7 months, but it was like a cheapy one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So like look at this is
Oh
the
yeah,
average weight per month, for me that I'm looking at. And look, there was a steep decline in the beginning of the year last year when I actually started
yeah.
going after a dieting phase last year. There was a little bit of maintenance. That was when I actually moved into my new home. So it was just like, I was hard to like kind of sustain any level of, consistent dieting because the food was inconsistent. And then there was just
Mm-hmm.
other things going on with like work travel. And then I got bored in June and July and started trying to put on mass again because I was wanting to get stronger. I just felt like that was where my head was at. And, moving in from August down to November, it was like, again, it was slowly getting there. And then things kind of have taken, more of a maintenance and hanging around 220. But I can scroll
Yeah,
back to, the previous year where my average weight for the entire year was like 210 pounds. So yeah, I am hanging on to like, again, on average, about 12-ish pounds of mass relative to like a 2020 set point or
yeah,
previous year, right? So again, this is you looking at this overarching picture again of an entire year. And you can even see the first time I actually attempted the building phase here, Seamus. From
yeah. I remember I think I was just meeting you there.
Yeah, you met me here like at like 220.
I remember that day because we shopped together, and
Yeah,
you're like, I remember like because I shopped for mine, I was like 3 products or something like that. I was like, all right,
yeah,
this, and this, and I was on like I think at that time I was just like on a really like strict plan before
yeah,
I did a build.
yeah.
And I was in the 170s, and you're like this, like just kept on grabbing. I was like, we're only here for a few days. What are you doing?
And I was like, yeah, man, like I gotta see this through. I'm about to go into that phase. And so that perspective, again, too, like I took 6 months to slowly work my way up from that like 210-pound body weight. It was being tracked in the background. I can continue to
Yeah,
see it on my health app. Literally, like I have so like you can this information of yourself is only useful when you want to look at it. Like, so if it's just kind of there, you go take a look at health app, which again, I would say is almost like the the app of the week, like in addition to
yeah.
the
App of the week, the
week,
HealthMate. Yeah,
like whether it's HealthMate or just health on iPhone or health with that, like if you've used
yeah,
that particular phone, I mean, again, can you clearly identify shit that went wrong during a weight gain phase? And I can tell you that
yeah.
when I got to 230 the first go around with my son, so if I scroll back a little bit further, you would have seen that. What happened? I stopped working out. I was still eating 4,500 calories a day, right?
Oof.
And I had no movement because I was no longer a student. And I have always discredited steps until I went back and saw that data being like, oh my God, I was walking 6, 7 miles a day on campus. No wonder why I had such a high,
I was so lean in college, man. Like
oh yeah,
walking everywhere. I mean, obviously, I was wrestling in college as well, and I had to be in a weight class. But like, just walking everywhere, I think kept you super lean.
it does. And you just discredit it. And you're like, oh my God, like I was 7 miles a day. Like literally, it wasn't like it didn't even feel like it was
And you got a 50-pound backpack on before. I mean, I started getting an iPad and a MacBook to just like have all my books, but like if you brought your books with you, you're like, oh man, my back.
Right. So, but again, like you can observe this data, understand like, okay, well, like where was everything else and what is my coach talking about? And literally like it dawned on me. I was like, okay, duh. Like I literally have like, and again, like I was so convinced that I was doing enough to not be gaining, and I surely wasn't because obviously, like, you don't just gain mass like arbitrarily unless there's like, potentially some hormonal issues with like your thyroid. Like I will
Yeah.
acknowledge that that could be a potential weight gaining thing when your T3 is not behaving properly,
Working the way it needs to, yeah.
right? Like there
Um,
are a few
like
scenarios.
Hashimoto's, hypothyroidism, yeah.
Hypothyroidism, right? When you're like your metabolism literally does down regulate. So like I'm not saying that it's impossible, but it's usually improbable that that's the main driver. Like if you were fine before and then you look at your lifestyle choices and you're not fine, again, I clearly identified I sit for work. I don't work out anymore. My wife wants a pizza.
I'm stressed out driving to work. I'm eating something on the way back from work. Like, yeah.
Well, okay, so before we get to the next segment, right?
Yeah.
You think about it, like why is it that so many ex-athletes have such a difficult time with losing weight? Right? Because
I mean,
performance,
that's a hard one, but yeah.
the performance was the number one thing, and they were eating a certain. So let's just say that like you gave them the nutrition prescription, they understand it to the level that we do, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Even myself, knowing as much as I do at this point in my career, I was clearly convinced that like I was still putting out that level of effort because you're like, well, I'm still a performance athlete. I'm still going after it. I'm still trying to get these things to be my number one driver. But they were no longer actually my number one driver. I wasn't being real with myself. I identified as a performance athlete, well into like me getting pregnant with my wife, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And as a result, like I still identified at that and I still ate that way. But now I'm like, hey, I identify with like performance matters, but like I can't let it exceed a certain threshold because otherwise I get some undesired composition. So
I do want to say about that, like the quote that I think I've heard the most, and I wrote about this recently, and a lot of people were like talking about it, is I used to be this. I
mhm,
used to do this. I used to be, and I've had clients that are Seamus, man, I used to be so confident when I would take off my clothes. I look great in swimwear. Seamus, I was so confident. I actually did like all these sports. And I used to eat whatever I want. And I used to eat whatever I want and I would look great. And
yeah,
it's like, yeah, that word used to was a different Seamus. That was a different Marcos. And you got to look at your life now. Like you're saying, you're a performance athlete before. It's like same thing for me, but it's not the same anymore. Like if I were trying to do the stuff that I was doing back in, surely I'm going to get hurt and I'm not going to get the same goals, like I'm not going to get the same. So you really have to look at the framework where you're at now and kind of get there. But yeah.
yeah. And coming from a guy that loves to eat, like I will acknowledge that more than probably every time we're on here, I'll probably acknowledge that. And my wife will clearly back that. She's like, Jesus, I've never seen anybody eat like you. I was like, really? That
Yeah.
it's clearly again, it's what I do for work, it's all I'm talking
Yeah.
about. And it does become a little bit exhausting. And when you do hear other people say, oh, it's just easy, this is the routine, I'm like, man, you know what, like I do also need to learn how to make food currently serve my current goals, and find
Yeah.
ways of having additional engagement. And with the days that food are actually the most on point for me personally, I am the busiest with work. So when I get my calendar flooded with people, my eating is aligned, and therefore I'm not making these silly like I need a snack mistakes.
Yeah. Super, super important. And I think I want to kind of talk about this, and I think this is a perfect way to get into this next segment. Is kind of an article of the week, which is really important. I think is this concept of like understanding limitations, right? Understanding limitations and understanding where you're at. And I want to share this article. There's a video here; it's about 30 seconds long, and I graphic content, kind of like a warning right now. So if anyone's disturbed by this, just kind of, you're gonna find it a little bit distressing, but it's basically of a woman in Ecuador. She suddenly dropped at the gym mid-workout due to a heart attack. And I want to show this. Again, warning, viewer discretion advised, right? You can skip this part if you don't want to see it, but it's just kind of here. And again, one more time for a last warning, right, Marcos? I just want to make sure everyone's kind of feeling, but it's a 20-second clip. And this woman here just working out. and we'll just kind of watch it. And if you're not watching, she's just doing some squats and stops for a second,
Mm.
looks over, and passes out. But they didn't show the full thing, thank goodness. But basically, she basically at that moment passed. This is basically what they said is this is the shocking moment. Gym goers rushed to offer aid when a woman suddenly dropped dead mid-training. Betsy Diana Jeremio Ramirez, 28, was believed to have suffered a heart attack while training at Zona Muscular Gym. This tragic event took in November, and basically what they said about it is she had been training there before, announced dead at the ambulance when she arrived at the hospital. They said it was a heart attack, but they were saying that she'd been training there regularly before. And basically, like it was just they didn't know what happened. So I'm gonna get out of this, but I just kind of I want to share that because I think for some of us people, like we're performance athletes, and then we're gonna think, hey, we're gonna go do something again, like
Mhm.
whether you were benching, squatting, deadlifting, like all this weight before, and you think mentally you can do that. And I'll use myself as an example. Like I used to have the greatest cardio when it came to wrestling, and I'll go back to jiu-jitsu practice. I'm like, I haven't been on the mats in months. And then I go do the same thing that I used to do. I'm like, I'm pulling a muscle, I'm cramping, getting hurt, or like my heart rate can't keep up with that because mentally I can picture myself doing it, but physically I'm just not there at that moment. And I think I just want to say I'm using a really extreme, rare, and sad analogy here or sad moment here, but don't push it too hard starting out the bat, okay? You really have to know where you're at and know your limitations because your body is not the same. Like Marco said, he was a performance athlete before, same here. But if I go do the same things I did before, I'm pulling a shoulder, I'm hurting a knee. It's not gonna be fun. It's the same thing with food too. Like you said, if you're not training that same way, but you're still eating the same way, like you said with athletes, like what's going to happen? They're probably going to gain weight. They're not going to be burning off the same way.
Yeah.
Body just the body changes as we age, right? That's that longevity thing, right, Marcos?
Yeah, and this is like the analogy here is comparison is the thief of joy. Even if you're comparing yourself against yourself, I used to do
Yeah.
X, I used to do Y, I could do this, and again, you're always battling father time. And as far as I'm concerned, he's undefeated,
Mm-hmm.
and again, like just being real with yourself now. Like you said, this is kind of a morbid example, but like again, too, like, is there any familial issues or other things that are going on that she had no idea about with regards to her health? Obviously, taking a look at her, just outward appearance, there may have been, potential issues with, who knows, maybe diabetes, potentially some hyperlipidemia, right? And
Mm-hmm.
again, like those things tend to be increased even independent of age based on, your BMI or your body fat percentage. And again,
Yeah.
she's in there doing the right thing for her health. But at the same time, too, like, going in and always hitting intensity right off the get go may not have been the right thing. So, you know,
Yeah.
there's a reason why there's that warning label on top of the freaking piece of equipment on every piece of machinery, right? Is
Mm-hmm.
consult your doctor before doing, a strenuous regimen with exercise, right? You should have some ideas to your baseline, what is the word? Your baseline biometrics, right? And
Yeah, yeah. Based on biometrics. Yep.
you want to know like your your blood pressure is handled appropriately, your pulse, right? That you take maybe get like a comprehensive diagnostics like we do with our other
Yeah.
clients, right? Um,
Yeah.
I think that's like look, I mean, it doesn't discriminate, right? What we've learned in the last 2 years, coming out of the pandemic is nothing could be, when it comes to health is it doesn't really discriminate, right? So
Yeah, like it's free, it's open season. Like anything and anyone, it can happen. You know what I'm saying? You could be as healthy as an ox, strongest in the room, whatever. Boom,
man,
right?
yeah,
Um,
and I
and
can,
we've seen. I think there was like 6 cases of like top tier athletes getting COVID, and then they just went too hard
mhm.
right out the bat, and then they passed, and they were like young. I was like, whoa, like it's insane.
Well, we've heard some in our other, consults or our other like group think where we have, literally NFL athletes coming in doing VO2 max tests, and their
Oh
current
yeah,
numbers after COVID are like literally like, yo, like you
way down.
there's something severely wrong with your recovery and your heart rate, and like we need to, give yourself some more time before, getting back into the league and like making a living, right? I've also
Yeah.
seen people who are gym owners part of our program that are very healthy individuals that like all they know is fitness, yet they are
Hmm.
still subjected to, having a heart attack, right? And it's not that this person was, again, deconditioned. They were, you know, plenty high on their VO2. They come in year after year, and yet they still had that, and they were a little bit in the older age. I think they were 69 when that event happened. But look, like
Yeah.
there's always like you can't live your life in complete fear, but you should also be taking those necessary steps to learn more about yourself. So having these new products like the one we just shared with you, the Withings, maybe there's a Bluetooth or a Wi-Fi enabled blood pressure cuff that you can have so you know where your blood pressure is every morning.
Hmm.
Maybe there's a way of, again, like you can use a CGM, right? You could use a
Yeah.
all these myriad of things that are tracking data so you can understand what's going on.
Yeah.
Again, whatever's
Talking about data tracking, I think one of our acquaintances, we talked about the Whoop last week.
Mhm.
He basically called out when he had COVID on the Whoop. I don't know if you remember that, but one of our
Oh yeah. Yeah,
acquaintances,
yeah.
he said something along the lines of like, "Oh yeah, my test came back positive 2 days after I already knew that I had COVID because my Whoop told me." Like, not the Whoop told him, but the way he understood the data, because he had been getting data for so long
Yeah.
that he was like, "I didn't have a strenuous workout. I did not have um how is it? I did not have bad
It was the
sleep. My
HRV,
stress
right?
was good."
It was like all over the place.
Yeah, it was just like all over, and he's like, "Something's wrong," and he's like, "I think I have COVID," and he kind of knew, and it was like, wow, look at the importance of tracking, right? Like what that body comp, like what that did, and again, these are some morbid, very intense kind of things, but back to that concept of like, you, having some baseline is really important. Not that you should live in fear, like Marco said, but like having some baselines is great, just because you can kind of see where you need to pivot if you have to.
Yeah, again, like I feel I don't want anybody to, again, I want we're health coaches, right? We're trying to make people, live a healthier life. And we're doing people a disservice if we don't say, hey, like you probably should look under the hood. I don't care that you're 28 years old, right? Like
Oh
get
yeah.
the more information that you can compile on yourself at a younger age because the technology is available and affordable, right?
Oh yeah.
You should do that, because then when you do start something again, like, well, maybe your cholesterol has been at 240 for forever, right? Versus the first time you get it and they put you on a statin. Well, I hate to break it to you, even though we're getting into higher generations of drugs, there's still potential side effects, right?
100%. I,
And
I want to I want to emphasize this. Sorry, Marcus, to interrupt, but I want to emphasize this. Like the one thing I think what you're trying to get is like, don't have a false sense of security that your health will always be great because it was always great for you. Like I had someone come in who was my age, 28, and he was always like great shape, but then things started falling apart. It's like, yeah, because you're up here, like you're always optimal, or you're super healthy, does not mean again that it's open season on you still. Like there's something that could happen. So it's always just good to be preemptive, it's a check in a year, it's a physical a year. It's like these things that like,
yeah, well,
don't fall into that false sense of security, right?
also too, we should mention, like, yes, if you have health insurance, you are allowed to have one blood draw, I believe, a year that is completely covered by insurance. There shouldn't be an out-of-pocket cost depending on your
Mm-hmm.
provider and your plan. I actually think it's like by law. But also too, you learning a little bit more and becoming an advocate for your health and telling your doctor to order some of these tests that may not be included because it's outside of the scope of what they normally look at is important too, right? You want to be able to look at, your fasted glucose, your hemoglobin A1C, your liver and your enzymes and all that functionality, a thyroid panel, a hormone panel. And again, too, but doctors be like, well, you're not going to an endocrinologist. Why should I order this? And it's like, well, I just want to have a baseline in case something goes awry, right? And even if you
Yeah,
have to pay a little bit extra because the insurance plan didn't cover it,
it's worth
you
it.
know, rest assured that like after years of doing this and seeing this, like it's massively important. And again, like, yes, that's only a snapshot in time and you may have been like off the wagon, but if it's like a good time to actually get that snapshot every year, because you're like, every year around May, I'm in my best shape, probably
Perfect.
time to like get that measure done. And, you know, maybe we'll do that for our product of the week next week, right? Is
Oh yeah, something that like that.
something like
That makes sense.
lab related, show
Yeah,
people like where they could go and do this. And again, in all honesty too, the less the insurance companies know about your health, the better, right? So if your insurance is knowing this, it's gonna potentially adjust your premium. So ordering labs on your own, by law, the insurance company cannot get your medical
yep.
with HIPAA compliance. So
HIPAA compliance. Yep.
yep. So yeah. We could
Well,
just
I love it. I want to move on to our last segment, but that's a deep one. Again, thank you guys for, I just want to say for the crowd here and the audience, like, thank you for being patient. Then, I mean, that was a morbid one, but for sure, just a case to kind of give our argument, some basis of like, hey, there's extremes, but then also in just the normals, in the normal ranges, that's don't live in fear, but make it happen. Our last segment is the icon of the week. We're gonna get into it. I think Marcos and I can kind of respect this icon of the week here, and it's going to be Henry Cavill. It's going to be Superman. Unfortunately, by the time this is out, Henry Cavill is out as Superman due to the DC world. I'm a big comic book fan. I don't know if Marcos knows, but I'm a big comic book fan. I keep up with them. I keep up with the movies. Um, but I wanted to shout out the man Henry Cavill just because he has worked so hard to get the perfect physique for his roles. He had this role for this like Greek mythology movie here. He was really lean. Then the next 2 years, he jacked up for Man of Steel. And then over time, he's just gotten more jacked. This was him in Mission Impossible. And he does still some functional things. And now, during this time, it's been like a day or two, but he has a contract with Amazon for a new series called Warhammer, which is a pretty big IP for those. It's a big IP, but he also is in The Witcher. So I just want to shout him out because he's been training super hard for, I'd say, the better amount of a decade or so now. And guy looks jacked.
how old is Henry Cavill?
I think like 38, 38. Let's look at his age. See, Henry Cavill. Let's see, age. I think he has the same strength and conditioning. 39 years old. 39
Okay.
years old.
What did he look like at
And
20, I wonder?
age 20,
Look at that.
he looked like that. Not look at his jawline though. He's still chiseled, lean.
So yeah, go to the one that Pinterest photo, like the second row, second from the right, second from the left. Sorry.
This one right here.
All right. So let's put this into context too. I'm glad you grabbed this guy as the icon of the week. 19 years of training to get that physique what he's at now. Think about that.
Yeah.
Like this aligns with the name of the podcast if if I ever would think so, right? The perspective here is like, like if you would see these transformations, like he spent half of his life trying to get his body to get to all those photos in those movies and those roles. And granted, he's on screen, right? And it is his job to look like a larger than life character, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that does not mean he's not in there putting in this work over time and getting himself ready for particular roles. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, speaking to this, right? Like putting on mass it's a it's a tough game, right?
It is. I mean, look at him. He just went from here to
To
here to
that.
now.
Yeah. I mean, again, genetics play a role and I think lifestyle and training. But again, if you start now, whatever your age is, doesn't matter if you're, 20, 30, 40, 50, it is never the wrong time because in a decade, there's so much transformation that could literally manifest itself. I can think of one of my clients. She and my mom started CrossFit at the same time, right? My
Yeah.
mom is, she's 64 and this person is 20 years, uh, 15 years younger than my mom, right? So she's like, oh, I can't keep up with her. I'm like, Mom, you're not supposed to, right? And like she's 15 years younger than you. So my mom started,
Yeah.
CrossFit in like her mid 50s, and it was like early 40s for the next individual. And I cannot tell you how many compliments. I'm not going to call her out. Maybe if she listens to this and then she says I can in the future, I'll bring her back into existence. And again, like she gets more compliments when it comes to like her arms and her physique than
Yeah.
anybody I know because they're like, wow, like, your figure and what do you do? Like, and it was a transformation that happened and continues to happen to this day over the course of a decade. So
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's definitely maturing as things go on because this is Man of Steel just like about 10 years ago.
that
You
was the
can
first
still
one. Yeah,
yeah, this is like 2013 when he was training and he's training here.
yeah.
You could still say that he's like relatively lean. This is like 2017. And then like nowadays, like where he looks like now, he's probably looking more like this because he's gotten really good with his training. He has the same strength and conditioning coach as The Rock, but he really respects the training game and what he's doing. So shout outs to him and exactly what you said, like with your mom, like you put in this work and things change over time. Like I said, I was 4 years ago, I was leaner, and over 4 years, I've gained a lot of weight. And most people would get scared with weight gain, but it's like it went in the right places and it went in the right consistent, steady things. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely give it to him. I'm a softie at heart just because I felt bad that he's out as Superman. But hey, Superman's gonna be around with in our screens. I'm a big movie kind of guy, but
I
we'll
mean,
definitely get to see this guy
Spider-Man
still.
times, hasn't it, over our life?
Yeah, we've had like five spots. Yeah, so we'll definitely get to see that. I mean, in the world of entertainment, they got to look great. And look, I don't care. I don't know if he was on anything or whatever. To me, that's 19, 20 years of consistent work. Whether he was on some stuff, I really don't care. So,
Oh yeah,
he
I don't think that
looks great.
again after outward appearance is not the direct result of your internal health either. Remember, so
Yeah,
he can look great. I'm sure he's monitoring a lot of things internally as well. And again, if you're striving to have a really hard looking physique and a very dry looking physique like he has, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You're again, it if it's not a part of your life and it like limits the or creates limitations around things that could be fun for you and your the things that you enjoy, you need to find that balance. And I'm sure, like, again, as an entertainer, and you're you're paid on the image that you get to portray, right? Like, then of course his focus is going to be there, maybe even harder than most people. So um just remember, like, superheroes and people that get casted as superheroes already had some sort of look to them, and then they put in that additional work, and whether or not they use a little bit of gear or something along those lines to help.
Something in the background that we don't know about,
It's
but
not
hey,
it's not our it's not our fault to we shouldn't judge, right? Like, they're literally supposed to be portraying people that are, again, a
super.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
super fantastic. So, for me, like as a scientist, I think one of the things that I learned in my field, because I my degree in exercise science, I go to a lot of conferences and stuff like that. And one of the things that um sports scientist said to me once, and this is like at a big conference, and he kind of we talked and he said it on the stage. He said, who are we as a sports scientist, as the person, whatever our personal values are,
Mhm.
who are we to put that upon an athlete, a person, if there's something that they want to do in their respective field and they can do that, quote unquote, supervised or healthy, for example, like these actors that like want to get on some gear to look a certain way. Like, who am I to put my bias on? The sports scientist's job is just to be there to help take care of the client as best as they can in the parameters that they're working with. Because with guys like this, there's so many people behind them. They've got, first off, there's a lot of money in that movie. They got to look a certain way. So they probably got a chef, they've got a trainer,
Oh yeah.
they got their doctor watching over them. They probably have an assistant like always on their top of their game. So it's like, who am I going to be in that like part of the wheel to say, oh, don't, this person's not natural. It's like, I don't know, like it's not my place. So
Yeah, does no to you, does natural, I mean, again, unless you're in a sport that's like literally being tested because you could literally kill somebody as a result of, like, using performance enhancing drugs. Do you,
yeah.
to me, I'm like people like argue or they joke about, like, well, I liked it when balls were getting hit out of the field like left and right, and with the golden era of baseball.
Barry Bonds.
Like,
Yeah, no,
Barry,
I hear you.
Barry
It's
Bonds won
freaking
a lot
900 home run. No, it's wild too. It's wild too. And then like, I mean, I get it too. It's dangerous. It can be dangerous to spew that kind of message because people watch these movies and they're like, oh my God, I want to have that physique. I get it. Like, because I've dealt with body dysmorphia and dealt with like, I know that a lot of females have that because like with the magazines as when I was growing up, or like like certain things, like males get it too, and you know, for example, I think I heard this the other day, but like females might do things to themselves, kind of like the Kim K body. They might get the lip fillers. They get the BBL. The BBL for guys, the equivalent is like they're gonna get on some gear, and it's like they don't know what they're doing. So, what I would say to that is, look, like if you're gonna do something like that, again, not my bias, but you should definitely have
Oversight.
oversight from a team of people to do that. You know what I'm saying? So you're
Medically
not just
trained individual probably wouldn't sign off on that. So,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah. And again, to clarify, everybody, we're not saying that like that's the only way to get results. Hard work still gets you there, but like,
Hard work.
yeah,
I'm all
like
about the natural lifestyle changes 100%. But then again, I always just go like, hey, I'm neutral about a lot of these things because it's like, again, where is my bias? Like, if that's something that person wants to do and they understand the ramifications and they've talked with their people that are, hey, it's totally cool. But for me, again, I just wanted to put that icon out for Henry Cavill just because he got kind of hit in the butt and then kind of bounced back in the same week. So much love to the man, and hope he'll be looking good on the screen for us for the next few years.
well, he has some other big roles. I didn't even know he was in The Witcher. I've never watched it, so how would I? Um, just again, obviously the the guy's clearly put in the work over the last 2 decades, and again, like it's consistency over time game. And
100%,
yeah, man. I mean,
100%.
anything else you want to say to like wrap today's up? I mean, obviously we touched on or getting on
Yeah,
the.
I just want to wrap up today. I think, man, we kind of went everywhere today, right, Marcos? We kind of went everywhere. But with this one, with the macro perspective that we're trying to get at is, look, we're trying to deliver things to give you more nuance, right, in these conversations, to give you our experiences as coaches, experiences ourselves. It's funny because I feel like I've coached over 1,000 people at this point, and I've had 1,000 different experiences of health, if that makes sense. Um, and I can parlay that to y'all. So if there's and Marcos definitely can as well. And like that's the point of this podcast. So as the community grows, when things start seeing, if you want to comment, leave a review, questions, things like that, I think both Marcos and I can have a little bit of answer to it and give you some nuance. And that's the whole thing. We want to be able to change some of your beliefs or educate you a little bit more about something so that you take health back in your own hands and see it from a bigger perspective and then are able to take action. And today's topic was a great one, getting back on the horse, staying on the horse for 2023. And over the next few weeks, we'll kind of have a continuation of all this. Anything else from you, Marcos?
Man, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head with everything there. Yeah, our goal is to, get people to start thinking things differently, really develop a mindset that allows you to give yourself enough time to actually get to your goals and develop a lifestyle that is well worth living. Seamus, where can they find you in terms of social media?
You can find me at Seamus Sullivan on Instagram. So SEAMUS, Matthew Sullivan, MATTHEW Sullivan, SULLIVAN, at Seamus Matthew Sullivan. I just went public on my IG. You'll be seeing more reels of me working out. And then you can always also find me on Facebook as Seamus Sullivan. I do have a free group where I give tips and educationals, especially in 2023. You're going to see a lot of drop there, a lot of guides for like how to meal prep, how to do this, everything that we're going to be talking about in this podcast, but more instead of being so all over the place, it'll be more dialed into that topic. So that's where they can find me. How about you, Marcos?
Yeah, I'm Marcos Luke Rivera, MarcosLukERivera at for Instagram. Don't have any Twitter, Snapchat, any of those things. No TikTok either. And then on Facebook, you can find me as Marcos Rivera as well. And I don't have a cool group yet.
I think we'll make one for this one for sure.
Yeah, we can make a group here so people can maybe hopefully,
do some Q&A.
Do some Q&A, help us with future episode stuff. And yeah, I think that's all for me, man. So let's go ahead and sign off here.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thank you.